Baruch Hashem Yahuwah, bless the holy name of Yahuwah as we gather together for part 3 of Ezekiel and the revelation of the 13 scrolls. I think I can stretch it out to 4 parts. But we are in today Ezekiel and the revelation of the 13 scrolls. We are in scroll 13, part 3. And I entitled this, 1/3 has passed and 2/3 remain. But we are hard-pressed, shaken, and ready as we are now entering into this 2/3 cycle. And I hope as we go through the teaching tonight, that will bring more clarity into your life. But understand this, that Ezekiel was chosen to receive this final 13th vision. He was chosen to be Yahuwah's messenger to the house of Israel in exile. We are, in fact, the house of Israel, Ephraim, the house of Israel, scattered amongst mystery Babylon in the nations. For we have this treasure in earthen vessels, don't we? Don't we? We have this treasure in earthen vessels. And Yahuwah's messengers are often sent to us by men like ourselves, whose terror shall not make us afraid, nor their hand be heavy upon us. We don't have the fear of man. We continue to press on and do the work of ministry, do the work of proclaiming and teaching and gathering these days. But Ezekiel, he was a Cohen. Ezekiel was a priest, but the priesthood, as we know, was brought low, and the honor of it was actually laid in the dust until the time of Reformation, when the seed would come and have the full weight, as Hebrews says in Hebrews 7 verse 12, the full weight of transference laid upon him. Of course, speaking of Yahusha. So that now you and I, we can carry on Ezekiel and the revelation of the 13 scrolls as what? A kingdom of priests and a holy nation to the nations in this last 2/3 cycle that we have now entered. For the clocks are ticking and 1/3 has passed and 2/3 remain. Ezekiel chapter 2 verse 1, it is written, "And he said unto me, Ben Adam, son of man, stand up, stand upon your feet, and I will speak with thee. And the Ruach, the Spirit, entered into me when he spake unto me, and he set me upon my feet. And I heard him that spake unto me." Those of you that are looking in the Hebrew text, you'll notice the standalone Aleph Taf. Within the text, it appears within the midst of heard and spake, because it's between the Hebrew words Shema, to hear, and Devar, the word, the spoken word. And it's the Aleph Tav, Yahusha, the first and the last, the Aleph and the Tav, that allows us to have that blood-tipped ear so that you can stand and speak to this last generation in the 2/3 cycle. Whether it's me, whether it's you out there, we have a job, a task that we are equipped to do. Verse 3, and it is written, "And he said unto me, Ben Adam, son of man, I send thee to the children of Israel, to the nations." The Hebrew word there is, of course, those goyim, the nations that are rebellious, which have rebelled against me. They and their fathers, they have transgressed against me even unto this very day. Of course, Ezekiel chapter 2 verse 3, the Mared Goyim in the Hebrew, the rebellious nation, Mared Goyim. And we lived in the midst, don't we, of a rebellious nation. In a nation in rebellion against Yahuwah Elohim. And of course, we can see that this word goyim, it's not a slanderous word like the synagogue of Satan would say, oh, the goyim, as they brush aside anybody of Ephraim, Israel, because they think that goyim is something bad. Yet Genesis chapter 35, verse 9, Yaakov, Jacob, who is Israel, is what? Goyim. So if we're going to return, we need to return back to who? Jacob, Israel, and yes, we are in the nations, goyim, but we're to return back to the origin of that word, which is our father, Jacob, Israel, engraft into Israel. Does that make sense? Because he is our Father. Go back to the origin of the word goyim. Don't stay out scattered in the nations because that's where rebellion is. Go back to the origin. Return back to your father, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, goyim. Genesis, Bereshit 35, verse 11, it is written, and Yahuwah said unto him, I am El Shaddai. Be fruitful and multiply. A goy and a company of goyim shall be of thee. You and I are now not the goy, but a company of goyim that is being pulled out of a rebellious goyim nation. Come out of her, my people. He's gathering the goyim out of the what? Marad goyim, rebellious nation, mystery Babylon. Because they're the people that go back to the root origin, Jacob their father. Goyim, I shall make a company of goyim shall be of thee, and kings shall come out of thy loins. Deuteronomy 31, verse 28. Assemble, that's the Hebrew word for church there, kahal. Assemble, ecclesia in the Greek, kahal, unto me all the elders of your tribes and your officers, that I may speak these words in their ears, and call heaven and earth to witness against them. Kahal, ecclesia. What we're seeing here now is a return to the cycles, because the golden calf brought in a new cycle, did it not? A cycle of rebellion and gather together. So are we going to be gathered together in rebellion to a golden calf cycle, or are we going to be gathered together to the 7 churches or ecclesia of revelation? Don't be gathered together to a rebellious nation. Be gathered together in these last days to the 7 assemblies in the book of Revelation that we'll be looking into in the future. Now, we have to understand that when we go back to our origins of the book of the covenant, which we've taught about and spoken of much, that the book of the covenant was a gathering together, but there is also the book of the law, which was a gathering together, but of a different, right? Of a rebellious people. Whereas the book of Revelation is a gathering together with the Song of Moses. It's a restoration and regathering. A restoration and regathering. Look at verse 4 in our Ezekiel text. And the children are impudent and stiff-hearted. I do send thee unto them, and thou shalt say unto them, Thus saith the Master Yahuwah. And they, whether they will hear, or whether they will forbear, for they are a rebellious house, yet shall know that there hath been a prophet among them. They'll know it. And thou, son of man, be not afraid of them. Be not afraid of them. Be not afraid of them. And I will be right back. Be not afraid of them. For thou, son of man, be not afraid of them, neither be afraid of their words, though briars and thorns are with thee, and thou dost dwell among scorpions. Be not afraid of their words, nor be dismayed at their looks, though they are a rebellious house. Though they are a rebellious house. So look at verse 6. In other words, what we see is when different words are spoken and cycles that we shouldn't go into, they bring forth what? Briars, thorns, scorpions, because another cycle is from another seed. We have to choose, like I've said over the past 2 weeks, whose cycles we're going to remain in. Because the nations are pulling you into a whole different cycle. In fact, many of us have been raised in that cycle. And Yahuwah is pulling us out so that we can get into his cycles, which is a huge, huge paradigm shift, is it not? Dismayed at their looks. The word there is faces or panaim. Panaim. And it's the same word, like I said last week, as a wheel, ophal, because it's all about their words. Are we going to be in their words or are we going to be in Yahuwah's words? Because their words are leading to one cycle and Yahuwah's words are leading to another cycle. So the people that are called out of the nations as a strange people are people that do not listen to the words or cycles of the nations because they have been pulled into a different set of words, the cycle and words of Elohim. Isn't it the Bible, the scriptures, the word that has pulled us out of their words, right? Things you and I used to accept in the world. We used to listen to their words. Now, because we have the living word, we're like, no, that's not true. So it's a change of cycles that sets us, in fact, free. Look what Yahushua said. Heaven and earth shall pass away, but my words shall not pass away. Matthew 8, verse 38. Mark verse 8. Chapter 8, verse 38. For whoever shall be ashamed of me and my words in this adulterous and sinful generation, the Son of Man also shall be ashamed of him. So we can see that words are cycles. We're going to stay in Yahushua's words. We've got to be in the Father's words. I and my Father are one. Luke chapter 1, verse 20. Because thou believest not my cycles, my words, which shall be fulfilled in their season or cycle. We're still talking about Ezekiel's vision. And we're looking again at the function. We're looking at the function. Because this is what is so important, not to get caught up in the form, but the function. I've said this. Whose cycles are we going to be abiding in? John chapter 15, verse 7. If ye abide in me, and my cycles, my words, abide in you. Ask whatever you will, and it shall be done unto you. Ezekiel chapter 2, verse 7. And thou shalt speak my words unto them, whether they will hear or whether they will forbear, for they are most rebellious. It's only the word, the cycle of Yahuwah, that can pull you out of the cycle of rebellion. Is that true for all of us? That should be our testimony. That's my testimony. It was only the cycle, the word of Yahuwah manifest in the flesh, that pulled me out of the cycles of the world. That's why the word spoken, read, meditated on is so powerful. That's why the Shabbat, the feasts of Yahuwah, are so powerful because you are setting a new cycle in place in your life, and it gives you vision like the prophet. Even if people don't hear, you stay on Yahuwah's cycles. You stay on Yahuwah's cycles. Verse 8. But thou, son of man, hear what I say. And again, we're going to see, if you look in your text, there's the standalone Aleph Tav. It's between the word hear and what I say. Unto thee, be not thou rebellious like that rebellious house. Open thy mouth and eat that which I give thee. Eat it. So now we're getting into the part of the vision in verse 9 where he's going to eat of it. And when I looked, behold, a hand was put forth unto me, and lo, the roll of a book was therein. And he spread it before me, and it was written within and without. And there were written therein lamentations and mourning and woe. Lamentations, mourning, and woe. The Hebrew word here for the book is Megillah, or scroll. Megillah, or scroll. If we look at that word in the Hebrew, you're going to see the Hebrew root word has got Megillah. You can hear it. The Gimel Lamed. The Gimel Lamed is contained within the Hebrew word Megillah for scroll. And what does a scroll look like? Nothing but more than a cycle, a roll, a cycle. And you can hear it within the word Megillah. You've got the Gimel Lamed, or Gelgal, the Gimel Lamed, or roll. And what happens if I've got a huge rock? You've got to be careful, especially if you're from Georgia, and you've got a huge rock on the floor outside, and it's in the middle of summertime, and you roll that rock. What have you got to be careful? You could expose something, a snake, that is underneath. So what is it telling us? Rolling exposes, does it not? If you roll something, it exposes something that was hidden. Rolling something exposes something that was hidden. Megillah, with the Gimel Lamed root, we're looking at the Gelgal, to roll or expose or to make a cycle. Rolled over or exposed is what the prophet is trying to communicate. To push, think about it, to push or lead something by the foot. The Hebrew word galal, or the Greek word kalaptu or apokulio is gimel lamed lamed, the Hebrew word galgal. Think about it. Israel is rebellious, so what does Yahuwah do? He rolls them out of Israel and rolls them into the nation to expose them to the elements in the hopes that they will repent and roll back to Yahuwah. And whilst they're rolled out in the nations, they could be bit by snakes and scorpions. And Paul spoke to the Galut, the Galatians. They were in the Galut, the Gimel Lamed, the rolled out exile, were they not? and they had been exposed to scorpions and snakes because of their rebellion. And Paul was sent out to the nations to roll them back towards Yahuwah. You've got to get out of the cycles of mystery Babylon of which you have been exposed and bitten, and you need to roll back into the cycles of Yahuwah. And how you do that is by his word, his Sabbaths, and his cycle of feasts. This is powerful because the galut, or the exile, means nothing more than to expose you. I have been exposed to so much garbage by growing up in a secular household. Things that I now try to protect my children from. I do not want my children to be exposed to what I was exposed to. Therefore, from the moment they were in the womb, we decided to roll our lives back to Yahuwah because we did not want the next generation bitten by what hides underneath the rock of exile. The galut, the exile, means to expose. Yahuwah rolled Israel, listen, Yahuwah rolled Israel into the nations, and he left us there, exposed to the elements, exposed to the gods of the nation, exposed to the world. Why? Because he hates us? Heavens forbid, no. In the hopes that you and I would repent and roll back to the Father himself from where we came. Isn't it an amazing that we can take this by looking at the function of the word of Yahuwah in our life, instead of getting caught up in the form? Look at Genesis chapter 29, verse 3. Because the problem is we have been out in the nations for too long. We have been rolled over and exposed in the nations where there are thorns and thickets and scorpions of the world. Hence the Revelation scorpion stings is the ultimate judgment to bring back a rebellious house to Yahuwah Elohim. Genesis chapter 29, verse 3. And thither there were all the flocks gathered, and they rolled the stone from the well's mouth, and they watered the sheep, and put the stone again upon the well's mouth in its place. Gelgal, to roll, the Greek word kalupto, or another Greek word you see it come across is apokulio, or however the Henry you pronounce that. I didn't take Greek when I was in school, as you and I both know, but I'll give it a bang anyway, right? Joshua chapter 5, verse 9. It's all Greek to me anyway, right? Joshua 5:9. What happens in Joshua 5:9? To roll away. If you roll something away, you expose what's underneath it, don't you? Roll it away and you'll expose what's underneath it. What did they do with Yahusha? To expose the mystery of the Melchizedek, you have to roll away the stone from the tomb, don't you? And it exposes an empty tomb, the foundation of our faith. And with that, you get the Gimel Lamed. You'll always get the Gimel Lamed in the rolling away and the exposure of something, in the hopes it'll expose your sin, my sin, that will repent and want to roll back to Yahuwah and his son, the empty tomb, who is in the Hebrew our Goel. What's that? A Gimel Lamed? The kingsman redeemer. Ultimately, we should roll back to the kingsman redeemer, the Gimel Lamed, to roll it back around. It's time to cycle back to Yahusha, and the mystery of the Melchizedek is the key to regaining the cycles in your life. back to the truth. Psalm 22 is, of course, the psalm of crucifixion, is it not? We know it all so well. Yet we find in verse 8, we find this. He trusted, the Hebrews Strong's word there, Hebrews Strong's number 1556. He trusted on Yahuwah that he would deliver him, let him deliver him, seeing he delighted in him. What's the Hebrew word there for trusted? Anybody got their concordance open? You're usually fast on it, Aaron. Gimel Lamed, right? It is galal. Roll back to Yahuwah. Right there. Trusted means that you roll back to Yahuwah. The Gimel Lamed. Another one is Psalm 77 and the 18th verse. The voice of thy thunder was in heaven. What's the Hebrew word there for heaven? Strong's number again, 1534. The lightnings lightened the world and the earth trembled and shook. Anybody? What's the Hebrew word there for heaven? Huh? It's not Shamayim. It's Galgal. Galgal. What's that in the Greek? Those of you that like to use the concordance in the Bible, computer software that I like to use, it makes it a lot easier than 15 years ago when we used to have to carry around. I mean, I used to carry around such a heavy book bag, and now I just got my Mac, and I'm good to go with E-sword on it. Of course, the word there for heaven is Galgal. The Greek word there is trochos. Where do you find that Greek word, trochos? James chapter 3 verse 6, the wheel, the cycle of Genesis. Remember James says in chapter 3 verse 6, because we've got to roll back to Yahuwah. I mean, this is all about the vision, but we're looking at the function and we're actually being transformed. You look at the form and you'll end up like the Greeks. Verse 9 of our prophetical vision. And when I looked, behold, a hand was put forth unto me, and lo, a roll of a book was therein. And he spread it before me, and it was written within, and it was written without. And there were written therein lamentations, mournings, and woe. And we know from the book of Hebrews, one of my favorite books, in chapter 10, verse 7, that Moshiach, Messiah, will roll our lives back into his cycles. And the origin of the book of the covenant is in the cycles of being a holy nation and a kingdom of priests. Messiah, Hebrews 10:7, said, then said I, lo, I come. Where does he come? In the book of the law? No, he comes in the volume of the book of the scroll. It is written of me to do thy will, O Elohim. Because James 3:6, Yahusha is the one that cycles us back to the book of the covenant reality of the mountaintop experience. A return to the royal Torah. That's what we're teaching. Look at Ezekiel, because Ezekiel is giving the message. Yahusha is doing it now. And times are ticking. Times are ticking. Ezekiel 4:5. Look what it says in the 4th chapter and the 5th verse. Because 1/3 has passed and 2/3 remain. Ezekiel 4:5. 1/3 has passed, brethren, and 2/3 remain. I got born again in 1996. I came into the Torah around 2000 and early 2000s, okay? So it's been some time. What's your testimony? I would dare to say most of our testimony is within the same 1/3 time frame. What do I mean? This will be the sign for the house of Israel, Ezekiel 4:5. Lie on your left side and lay the iniquity of the house of Israel upon it. For how long? 390 days I have laid upon you a day for each year of exile. How long are we going to be rolled out into the nations? How long until we confess our rebellion? We change cycles. We stop listening to the words of the world. We stop doing things in conformity to the cycles of the world. And we actually pull our head out of the sand and we start to cycle back to the things of Yahuwah. How long before that stone begins to roll back to Jacob our father? Leviticus 26, verse 18. And if you will not hear, and if you will not hearken unto me, then I will punish you 7 times more for your sins. Oh, 390 years, that won't even be suffice for you. You're going to get 390 years times 7 rolled out into the nation, you stiff-necked people. Stiff-necked. The Assyrians took Israel captive in 721 before the Common Era. 390 years, Ezekiel 4:5, times 7 times the punishment, Leviticus 27:18. You can do the math. I'm dreadful at math, so check my math. 2,730 years we will be rolled out into the nations. We will be bit by scorpions, stung by snakes. We will be trampled underfoot. Finally, we'll be so sick of the system. We'll be so sick of syncretism, Christmas, Easter, and all of the bollocks. Did I say? I did. Excuse me. My wife, I'm sorry. We'll be so sick of the calf's bollocks. I can redeem the word. We'll be so sick of the calf system or cycles that we will repent and roll back to the cycles of Yahuwah. Forgive me, sometimes it's hard overcoming my British heritage, and that is a trouble in itself. But we don't need to go there. That's my problem. It's certainly not yours. It's somewhat my family's, though. 390 years times 7, 2,730 years in captivity. When does our exile end? Like I said, the 1/3 has passed, 2/3 remain. Many of us were brought into the covenant reality of Torah, Shabbat keeping, the feasts around the early 2000s. 2010, would the exile be finished? And it would have been finished on the 7th day of Sukkot on one of the varying Ephraimite calendars that we've got, including the 0 Roman year discrepancy, right? I mean, how many Ephraimite calendars are there out there? One of them's got to be right? And of course, it's Torah to the tribes calendar that's right. We all know that. It was a pun. It was, all right, okay, guys, come on. 10 years ago, yes, our calendar's right. But, a little bit of grace, a little bit of love, we're all learning. But, seriously, take into account that we should be witnessing this from around 2010 to 2038. We should be witnessing the end time rolling out from the nations. Why between 2010 and 2038? Because I have to admit it. I mean, back in the early 2000s, I was absolutely convinced that the tribulation was going to be happening any day. And here I am in 2018, and I'm like, oh, Father, I mean, I know you're long-suffering, but, I mean, are we going to be, how much longer? Are we, ready? Can it get more profane? And then it gets more profane. Can it get more profane? And then they light the White House up with rainbow colors. Can it get more profane? And then they're bringing in more judges, more legislators. Yes, apparently it can. Yahuwah, please, come quickly, come. What do I mean that we're going to see something happening between the end of our exile, which was 2010, and 2038? Because what we notice in the Bible text, if you do not Shema, Shin, Mem, Ayin, if you do not Shema, obey me, is mentioned 4 times in reference to the 7 times in Leviticus 26, verse 18. What do I mean? Look at the punishment that is mentioned 7 times the punishment. Remember, Ezekiel's got the 390 years. Well, we've established it's going to be 7 times that, which is going to give us 2,730 years. If we were exiled in 721 before the Common Era, then our exile in the nations ends in 2010. But now I want you to bring and draw your attention, because some of us are like, well, it's 2018. Why hasn't it happened then? Because it's going to happen between 2010 and 2038. How do I know that? Because what you find, if you do not obey me, Shema is mentioned 4 times in reference to the 7 times the punishment in Leviticus 26. So 7 times 4 equals, Matthew's math isn't that good, but I do know that, it's 28. You find this in Leviticus 26, verse 14, verse 18, verse 21, and verse 27. If you do not Shema, if you do not obey me. 7 times 4 is 28. We have a generational window of gathering. 1/3 has passed and 2/3 remain. And then we're done. We're done. This right now, you and me, are living in the generation of the gathering, which is why I am so on fire for the clarity of vision in Torah to the Tribes ministry, because this is a funnel of gathering. Time is short. Forget all the nonsense. Forget all of the diversions. I am not going to go with it. It is time to gather. Time is short. I'm not playing denominational dummies anymore. It's gathering time. Gather, gather, gather. And if you won't be part of it, then boom, we've got work to do because we have a window. And the time is running short. That's why we're seeing such an influx and the power and anointing of the Holy Spirit to gather the people. That's why this is so important to your generation, to each subsequent generation, to spread the message, to gather in, because it is coming in the hill, in the hedgerows and the ditches. In the meantime, people are being cycled off in other words. And those words aren't in the Bible. Cycled off into all kinds of crazy stuff. All of these writings out there that are not the Bible. And the people that are doing it, they don't even understand, and they're not confident enough to teach the Bible. So therefore they teach words that are uninspired, extra biblical works, because they know that they will be exposed as non-qualified because they cannot teach the word. It's very clear. It's the book of Jude right there on steroids for you. Yeah. So we have to be careful. We have a generational window right here from 2010 to 2038, and 1/3 of it is already passed. And this ministry has been very busy in that 1/3 that's already passed. But we could have done a lot more had I had the clarity of vision that it's all about gathering, not to get caught up in all the other side issues that are not going to help the greater whole of thousands upon thousands upon thousands of people all across the world that are getting the stone rolled, exposed, and cycled back to Yahuwah. And the Melchizedek message and the Book of the Covenant reality is key, foundational truth. We must set a firm foundation as all of this extra biblical nonsense spirals people off to the left, to the right, to go. You know what? I don't know this Bible well enough to go and spend my time reading stuff that's not in here. And I love history. And I love other things. And I love to read. Yet I can't get enough that's within here. How does that work? It's foolery. I just say it what it is. Call it what it is. Because nobody else, people, sounds really good. Well, if you read the Bible, you'll be like, no, it doesn't sound very good. And the moment it conflicts with the Bible, chuck it out, please. Oh, no, but there's a lot of other good stuff in it. Yeah. That's not really very good sound thinking, is it? Weigh it out. The word of Yahuwah is what will refine us. Ezekiel chapter 2, verse 10. Took a side tangent there, Ezekiel 4:5, but I wanted to explain why we are in the 2/3 remaining, because of course we see in in Leviticus 26 that prophecy. Ezekiel 2 verse 10, it says, "And he spread it before me, and it was written within and without, and there was written therein lamentations, mourning, and woe." I sometimes need to sit down because I get excitable. See? Take a chill pill. Now remember, we're talking about the scroll here. This scroll is very particular because there were two types of ways a Megillah, a scroll, would be written. One of the ways is that the scroll, I've spoken about this before, the lower part of the scroll, you'd have a scroll. The lower part of the scroll, in the midst of the scroll would be a couple of hole punches, and below the hole punches would be the information, the deed in the scroll. The scroll would be rolled up to the midway point. It would be tied through the hole punches, and it would be sealed with 7 seals. And then the loose leaf would have the abridged information and the date of when the document was formed, and it would be put away in a stone jar. Then if you needed to know what was in the scroll, you wouldn't break the scroll, you wouldn't break the seals, you wouldn't untie it unless you had the authority to do it, but you would look at the loose leaf on top. Jeremiah 32 verse 10. "And I signed the deed and sealed it. I took witnesses and weighed the money with the scales. So I took the purchase deed, both that which was sealed according to law and the custom, and that which was open," the top of the scroll. Does that make sense? But there's another way that a scroll would be sealed. And that is, you would have the inner scroll and the outer scroll. On the inner scroll, you'd have the text, the land deed, whatever the important document is. And then on the outside, you would have the abridged version. You would have the scribal docket and the date. It would be rolled up and it would be sealed with 7 seals. And then on the outside, you could see the abridged of what was within, but only the man with the authority to loose the seals could do such a thing. What do we have here? Of course, we see, the distinction and difference between the book of Revelation, the sealing type of scroll there, and the one here in Jeremiah 32 verse 10. But the top half of the one would have been in Jeremiah, would have been the abridged description of the deed. It would have been left open for reference, which would have had a scribal date, a tab often attached by the jar merchant. In Ezekiel, in the Masoretic text is chapter 1, verses 2 and 3. Look at the text right there. In Ezekiel chapter 1, verses 2 and 3, where we witness the scribal date tab that was attached by a scribe or jar merchant at a later date. Because chapter 1 of Ezekiel, verses 2 and 3, being the only date that was not, I say again, was not affixed by Ezekiel. That's the abridged scribal tab that was put in place by the jar merchant or scribe later. That's the only date in the whole book of Ezekiel that was not affixed by him. In the case of Revelation chapter 5, we find that the deed is written on one side. It is rolled and sealed with how many seals? 7 seals. And then the abridged description is written on the outside for reference. It's written within and without, just like our one here. Yeah? Does that make sense? Okay. So this informs us that Ezekiel's final vision will not be fully realized. And you've got to track with me here. This tells us something very important. Ezekiel's 13th vision. Remember, we got the difference between Revelation chapter 5 and Jeremiah 32. 2 different kinds of forms of sealing the deed, of sealing the scroll. Which one is Ezekiel telling us it is? Is it the Jeremiah one or the Revelation one? Why? Why is it Revelation? Because it's written within and without. What does that tell us prophetically? It tells us that Ezekiel's final vision will not be fully realized until the last 2/3 of which we are now in. It will not be fully realized in the days of Jeremiah, because the days of Jeremiah was as the days of Ezekiel. It will not be realized fully in those days because it's not sealed that way. It will be fully realized in the apocalypse revelation generation, which is the last 2/3 of humanity, which is you and me right now, because it will be fully realized in the days of the apocalypse because it's sealed the same way as the Revelation 5 apocalypse sealing. For this was shown to have, what was it shown to have? I've done it 3 times. Lamentations, mourning, and woe. How many woes are there? How many woes were there? Woe, woe, woe. Lamentation. Is a lamentation? Is a mourning a woe? Is a lamentation a woe? And is a woe a woe? Woe? Is it? Woe, woe? 3 woes. Revelation 8, verse 13. I'm having fun with you, but I get the advantage that I've studied this. You get the disadvantage that you're hearing it for the first time. But I can have a little fun because I'm confident in the word of Yahuwah, as I know you will be when you study to show yourself approved too. Right? It's so amazing. Revelation 8, verse 13, you're going to see the lamentation, the mourning, and the woe. You're going to see that this comes on the heels of Revelation 5, which is the deed sealed within and without. Written within, and without. Ezekiel's vision of the 13th scroll is going to come true in our day. Not Jeremiah's day. It's not sealed that way. And Jeremiah's day was the same as Ezekiel's day, because this is future. This is today. 1/3 has passed, 2010 to 2018. 2/3 remain, 2018 to 2038. This is the season of gathering. We've got 20 years to get busy. I don't know the day or the time, but we do know the seasons, right? The cycles. The cycles. That's why. The sharpness, I can't tell you, the sharpness and the clarity I have in my life now is the profundity of it. And it was birthed through trials, through tribulation, through misjudging, through mockery. And I count it all as good, as glory to Yahuwah, because the sharpness and the clarity that there now is in the word is overwhelming to me. And beheld, I heard an angel flying through the midst of heaven, saying with a loud voice, woe, 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 to the inhabitants of the earth by reason of the other voices of the trumpet of the three angels, which are to sound. Revelation 9, verse 12. One woe is past. Excuse me? What did I just say? What did I just say? 2010 to 2038. 1/3 has passed. And how much? I guess. I don't know. It's just so, you talk to people, you try, and it's either you get it or you don't. I don't know what to say at this point. The severity of Yahuwah's judgment, the severity of the time, and you know, I like to take a break. I mean, I just got back from skiing. I had a phenomenal time. But we can't live our life like a break. Because the severity of what we're dealing with here. One woe has passed and two remain. There come two woes more hereafter. Because whilst we are being rolled out of the nations during these woes, the nations are going to be exposed more to the stings of the scorpions that are beneath the rocks. Revelation 11 verse 14, the second woe is past, and behold, the third woe, it's coming quickly. So it's speeding up. Who sees that? Who sees the exponential mass explosion? I for sure and certainly do. Both with revelation of the Bible, but also the blindness, absolute blindness of those that are not paying attention to the things of Yah. Because the world is getting louder, is it not? It's getting more noisy. You've got more distractions. There's more things non-biblical to get caught up in that have the form of godliness, yet deny its power. There's no power in the book of Jubilees. There's no power in the book of Enoch. There's no power in these extra biblical works that lead us away from the word and power and truth. But it has a form of godliness. You can get away with it with a few people, but not if we're pressed down, shaken, and committed to the things of Yahuwah. Who has time for the tomfoolery of that? Not me. Not you. Please, not you. Chapter 3 of Ezekiel, verse 1. I'm fluctuating and vacillating between deep emotion and a lot of passion today. I don't know why. Moreover, he said unto me, Son of man, eat. Now, between Son of Man and eat is, John chapter 6, the Aleph Tav. Will you eat of my flesh and drink of my blood? Will you? Will you? Yahushua says. Aleph Tav, the standalone Aleph Tav, appears between Ben Adam and eat. Thou findest, eat this roll and go speak to the house of Israel. So I opened my mouth and he caused me to eat that scroll. Again, between eat and that scroll, here's a hint, is the standalone Aleph Tav. You're going to eat of Yahushua to get the revelation of where we're going to get out of the nations. And he said unto me, Son of man, cause thy belly to eat and fill thy bowls. Now, between the word fill and thou bowels, I said bowls, I meant bowels, is, again, the standalone Aleph Tav. 3 times just within these few verses. So what's the Aleph Tav teaching? Right there in Ezekiel chapter 3, verse 1. with those 3 olive tables standing alone between those Hebrew words, what do you find? This is the teaching. The Son of Man will find that which is lost. To those who'll eat of his word alone, you're not going to go after all this extra biblical nonsense, because you will have the discernment to know that the ones that are doing such thing have already come under the spell of the nations. The Son of Man will find that which is lost. To those who eat of his word alone, them which will be filled with the word that he giveth unto them. That's the teaching. That's the teaching. The Son of Man, he's going to find that which is lost. To those that will eat of his word alone. Them which will be filled with the word that he giveth unto them. I'm filled with that word. You're filled with that word, because we're not being distracted, sidetracked, and that is the key. Because remember how this all started? The hand of Yahuwah is upon us for clarity of vision. Then did I eat, and it was in my mouth as honey for sweetness. And he said unto me, Ben Adam, son of man, get thee unto the house of Israel, and speak my words unto them. For thou art not sent to a people of a strange speech and of a hard language, but to the house of Israel. Not too many people of a strange speech and a hard language, whose words thou canst not understand. Surely, had I sent thee to them, even they would have hearkened unto me. So let's finish up today. But let's be real when we finish this up. I mean, I love the Hebrew roots. I've learned so much. But let's be real. With all this Torah, with all this Hebrew, let's be real. What does the word say right here? Because Yahuwah is bigger than the Hebrew roots. Yahuwah is bigger than the King Jimmy. Yahuwah is bigger than the NIV. Yahuwah is bigger than all of it. He's even bigger than the Hebrew language. Yahuwah is bigger than the Greek language. Yahuwah is bigger than the Elizabethan court and the King Jimmy. Our refusal, look at the text, our refusal not to return isn't because of a language barrier, is it? So don't go beating people up because they don't know as much Hebrew as you, or as much Greek as you, or if they pronounce Greek like I do, which isn't really pronouncing it. But, you know, Yahweh's bigger than my mistakes, praise Yah, and your mistakes. And our return, our rolling back to Yahweh, isn't dependent upon language, is it? That's what the Bible text says. No, our return is dependent upon hearing and obeying, making repentance. Our return isn't because of anything we've done, but repent because we heard and we obeyed. We accept the Master Yahusha, whose stone was rolled away, exposing an empty tomb, which allowed us access into the mysteries of Yahuwah. Our refusal not to return isn't because of a language barrier. Ezekiel 3 verse 7. But the house of Israel will not hearken unto thee, for they will not hearken unto me. For all the house of Israel are impudent, they are hard-hearted, and behold, I have made thy face strong against their faces, and thy forehead strong against their foreheads. And you know what? A lot of people, they just don't like me. And I'm okay with that. But I got a strong face and I have got a hard forehead. And you know what? It's for a specific purpose. Because 1/3 has passed and 2/3 remain. And I still will be up here because you and I need to be as hard as flint to get the job done in these days and ways that we are living. It's so important to be able to confront, to be able to continue on, is to have what? A strong face and a strong forehead. As an adamant harder than flint have I made thy forehead. Fear them not, neither be dismayed at their looks. Over the years, when I look out, can you imagine the looks that I've got from people when I've taught? The looks that I've... You can't even imagine the looks on people's faces. It just motivates me more to go on and on, because it is something that is ingrained in the called out ones. Because otherwise you'd have the fear of man. It's called being a coward. Pandering to the masses. See? Look what we're dealing with here. Be adamant, harder than flint. I have made thy forehead. Fear them not, neither be dismayed at their looks, though they be a rebellious house. Moreover, he said unto me, Son of man, all my words that I speak shall speak unto thee. Receive in thine heart, and hear with thine ears. And go get them from the captivity. Go get thee to them of the captivity better. And there we find our Hebrew word. I love the Hebrew. I love the Hebrew. But my return isn't dependent upon it. My return was dependent upon rolling over and repenting. Does that make sense? Golah, right here. Golah. Gimel Lamed He. Golah. Roll. Scroll. Roll into the exile. And then when they're ready, when they've been exposed to the elements, roll them back to me. That's the simplicity of Yahuwah. The Gimel Lamed. Oh, you're stiff-necked? Ezekiel, they won't listen to you. They won't listen to you. I already rolled them into the exile. Here's an opportunity, Ezekiel. Go speak to them. See if you can get them to roll back to me. Oh, and they wouldn't. So what did Yahuwah do? He rolled them even further out into the exile, even into harsher territory, amongst thickets and thorns, vipers, scorpions, and snakes, for another 2,500 years. But he was willing to roll them back right here and there and then. In fact, he rolled Judah out for 70 years, and then he rolled them back in. Gimel Lamed. Gimel Lamed He. Golah. Verse 11, and go get thee to them of the captivity under the children of thy people, and speak unto them and tell them, thus saith the Master Yahuwah, whether they will hear or whether they will forbear. Then the Ruach, the Spirit, took me up, and I heard behind me a voice of great rushing, saying, blessed be the glory of Yahuwah from this place. Verse 13, I heard also the noise of the wings of the living creatures and touch one another, and the noise of the wheels over against them, and a noise of a great rushing. Verse 14, so the Ruach, the Spirit lifted me up and took me away, and I went in bitterness. I went in bitterness in the heat of my spirit. But the hand of Yahuwah was strong upon me. The hand of Yahuwah was strong upon me. Then I came to them of the captivity of Tel Aviv, that dwelt by the river Chebar, and I sat there. And I sat, and I remained there, astonished, among them 7 days. And of course, Ezekiel was taken captive, and the prophecies of us are spoken from where? From Tel Aviv. The prophecies are spoken, not Tel Aviv by the Mediterranean, but Tel Aviv by the river Chebar. Near the river Chebar, it was a canal that was flowing into the Euphrates southeast of Babylon. But the prophecy of Zechariah 13:8, 2/3 are going to die. 2/3 are going to die. What does that mean? How much will remain? 1/3 remains. 2/3 will die. 1/3 will remain. From Gaza to Ashkelon to Ashdod, Zephaniah 2 verse 4, the sea coast of Israel will become pastures during these next years. Zephaniah 2 verse 6. The Dead Sea will dry up. Zephaniah 2 verse 9. There's going to be a Tel Aviv judgment. That's what the prophecy is telling us. There's going to be a Tel Aviv judgment upon the horizon. Like I said, 1/3 remains of those that are destroyed. But 1/3 has passed of our time, and 2/3 remain. And there are 2 more woes. Woe, woe. But look at Ezekiel. How long did he spend by the river Chebar? 7 days. And did he have anything to say? He was silent. He was silent. You see, some of you have remained silent when you know you should have spoken. Some of you have spoken when you know you should have remained silent. Right? The profundity of it all. But some of you have remained silent when you feel that you should have spoken up. You should have spoken for Yahuwah. But guess what? It's never too late. Never too late to be a watchman for Yahuwah. So take hope. He'll give you another opportunity. He will give you another opportunity. Will you stand on your feet so that you can next time? Because Ezekiel was sitting on his derriere for a blooming week. And he said nothing to. Nothing to. Verse 16, and it came to pass at the end of 7 days that the word of Yahweh came to me, saying, Ben-Adam, son of man, I have made thee a watchman unto the house of Israel. Therefore hear the word at my mouth, and give them warning from me. You see, Ezekiel would willingly have kept all he heard. He would have willingly have kept and saw all that he heard unto himself. He was willing to, he got all the revelation. He got this final 13th vision, and he was willing to keep it all unto himself. And I know exactly what that feels like. Exactly what that feels like. Willingly, he would have kept all he heard and saw to himself, that it might go no further. But the hand of Yahuwah was strong upon him, and that hand of Yahuwah, it overpowered him. He was carried on contrary to his own inclinations. He was carried on contrary to his own inclinations by the prophetical impulse. He could not help but be moved by the prophetical impulse, even though he's like, I don't want to go. Do I have to do this? So that he could not but speak the things which he had heard, but speak the things which he had seen. As with the apostles' testimony later. Read the book of Acts, chapter 4, verse 20. And later still, my testimony. my testimony. Because I shut myself up away in study for years. For years. Kept it all to myself and shared it with my wife. Kept it all to myself. People are like, you gotta share that. I'm like, no. Just studying, keeping it all to myself until I was overcome by the prophetical impulse and the conviction by the Ruach HaKodesh, the Holy Spirit, that I could not but go forth. Because the prophetical impulse overpowered me, so I could not but speak the things which Yahuwah had revealed to me, to you. Look at verse 14. Because this is my testimony. You can take it or leave it, but you can't take it from me. It's the same testimony as Ezekiel. So the Spirit lifted me up and he took me away. And I went in bitterness, in the heat of my spirit, but the hand of Yahuwah, it was strong upon me. You see, those of us that Yahuwah calls to ministry, he furnishes our heads for it. Our foreheads in particular, hard as flint. He furnishes our heads for it. But he makes sure, this is the key, that he bows our hearts to it. Because he knows where he found me. You don't know where he found me, but he knows where he found me. And he knows that is what qualifies me to be able to have the head for it. Because no matter how smart I think I am, and there were days when I thought I was, I've overcome that, thank goodness. Because my logic, my intellect, and reason has failed me. My faith has seen me through. Because I always go back to where he found me. And that is what qualifies you. It's what qualifies me. Because we know that though he furnishes our heads for it, he makes sure that our hearts are bowed to it. And that's the key to saintly stoicism. That's the key to saintly stoicism. And you cannot manufacture it as much as you try. You'll burn out. And that's why people burn out. Because like Ezekiel, though, I'm just being honest with you. We're getting towards the end of the teaching, the end of the scroll. Like Ezekiel, I have followed with a heavy heart. I have. I have followed with a heavy heart, with a sad heart. The Spirit took me away, says he, and then I went, but I was in bitterness, in the heat of my spirit. You see, Ezekiel had already seen what happened to Jeremiah. He got thrown down a well. Jeremiah starts speaking, and look what happens to him. Oh, yes, sign me up. No, thanks. Yes, please, I'd love to be in the ministry. Are you crazy? Who would want to go? Oh, yeah, because the lights are on me, right? And the camera, it must be fun. You're insane. Do you see the people's faces? Look what happened to Jeremiah. Ezekiel's like, I'm not going. I'm sitting still. Everything you've showed me in this vision, I'm not speaking a thing. Day 1, day 2, day 3, finally, day 7, he speaks. But he wasn't willing to speak. Same with me. Oh, Yahuwah, thank you for the revelation of your word. Thank you for the revelation of your Holy Spirit. I'll stay home for 7 or 8 years, study myself to show myself approved, and I will just share it with everybody within my 110 square feet. And that was my job place. And that scared away most people. But I wasn't going to do it. That was fine for me. I like that, in my own environment, until the spirit of prophecy came upon me that I could not resist. Just like Ezekiel, But we find, like Ezekiel, I too have followed with a sad heart, because already Ezekiel had seen what happened to the prophet Jeremiah in Jerusalem, how he was abused by hand and tongue. And today, oh, those hands go straight to the keyboard, don't they? Those tongues go straight around and start to spread the rumor mill like never before. Oh, yes, you're afraid of hand and tongue. Do I really want to sign on to this? Thinks Ezekiel, thinks I. Do I really want to go forth with this? Thinks Ezekiel, thinks I. I see what happened to Jeremiah. Do I really want this for me? Who wants to sign up to be abused by hand and tongue? I mean, who wants to do that? You'd have to be insane. And I know some of you are like, yes, that's why you're doing it, because you are insane. No, you're insane. But like Ezekiel, really, when I received divine revelation myself in my studies and in my prayer life, it was to me, oh, Yahweh, this is amazing. This is awesome. This is as sweet as honey. Ezekiel 3, chapter 3, verse 3. I really could, with great joy. I know this sounds so selfish, but I could, with great joy and richness, have spent all my days meditating upon it and keeping it unto myself, keeping it up for myself. But when I was told to get up and to teach it to others, who I knew would be hardened, I knew they would be exasperated by the message, but I knew even more that they would be exasperated by me. My hard, flinty forehead, my hard face. I knew it. I knew it. When Yahuwah showed me all those years ago, I knew the people would be exasperated by the message, but I knew that they would be more exasperated by me. But still, I had to go forth, did I not? Did Ezekiel? Because the thing that exasperates people about me is the very thing that enables me to do the job. You see, that's the thing that you don't understand. You don't understand that. The very thing that you can't stand about me is the very thing that enables me to do the very thing that I was called to do. Now I just accept that. I'm not going to change it. I'm not going to sugarcoat it anymore. I'm not going to pander to you anymore. Not that I really did, but I'm not even going to try. I will never be your cuddly little teddy bear, okay, that's going to hold your hand through all of it. But there's a lot of other people out there that will, and that's grand. We'll find them. But I have to do this, as did Jeremiah, as did Ezekiel, as do some of you out there, and he equips us for it. He does equip us for it. And I knew that people would have their condemnation ready and set for me. I knew it. And I too, at that point, when I realized that, I went into this with bitterness. And I went away from that revelation that I must now get out of my leather chair and go do the work with bitterness. Really? I have to do this? I thought, not at all pleased at the prospect of it. Not at all pleased at the prospect of it. And like Ezekiel, I'm most probably oversharing. But it's a burden, so I will unburden myself before you. But like Ezekiel, ministry has been my greatest grief. It has been my greatest grief. Navigating past the misjudgment, navigating through the condemnation, looking at the faces, seeing the looks, all the snickering, all the rumor mongering, all the hands and tongues set against me It has been my greatest grief. And it makes me go on with my work with a heavy heart. It does. But, watch out for the big buts. But, the thought of gathering together these next 2/3 of the life and season that you are in, it revitalizes me, it encourages me, it gives me sharpness and clarity. I was on the Shabbat group this morning with Mario and Tamara and Joshua. What an amazing job they're doing. They're gathering there. What an amazing platform. I'm so blessed to be a part of it. That, to me, that is what's inspiring. Gathering together the saints that are steadfast and unswerving. That makes my forehead even harder. It makes my face even sharper. It emboldens me. Even in the midst of the discouragements, I foresaw them. I always knew that I could meet with the hand of Yahuwah, which was strong upon me. Because I know where he found me. You don't. I can share, but you'll never understand where he found me. And his hand is strong upon me. And it is strong upon you. You that know of his calling. You that know it with a surety, no matter what stands in your way, you know it. And it emboldens you, doesn't it? Doesn't it? Even in the midst of the trials. You see, those who Yahuwah designs to use to enlarge, he first humbles and straightens for a time. And you have to go through those times. It's okay. I've actually now just resigned myself to it. I have. Even though it's flinty. We'll finish up. But above all, I am divinely beholden to my true blue crusaders. And I'm divinely grateful for all that's unfolded along the way, giving me the clearer vision and a clearer calling to gather and restore as we crusade together to glory. Yes, I know, and you know too, the devil kicks up ashes in the eyes of the misguided along the way. But when I say unto the wicked, thou shalt surely die, and thou givest him not warning, nor speakest to warn the wicked from his wicked way, to save his life, that same wicked man, he shall die in his filthy sin, his filthy stinking iniquity. So get up off your asses, get up on your feet, and go and do the work this next 2/3. Because if you don't, it's going to be held against you. And if I don't, it's going to be held against me. So stop pandying around like a bunch of faggoty old fruitcakes being affected by the nations, and get up and do the work of Yahuwah. That's what we got to do. And let the chips fall where they will, right? Look what it says right here, finishing up this. It's just like, I'm done with it. Let it be what it will be. People will come, people will go. There's a gathering happening, and we've only got a short time left. But we have to speak up to, because otherwise, verse 20 again, when a righteous man doth turn from his righteousness, and he commits iniquity, I lay a stumbling block before him, he shall die. Yes, it saddens me when I see people going off and they start getting into all of this nonsense and start studying all this stuff outside the Bible. And guess what? Their iniquity falls upon them and they get judged, side-railed, and they're no longer used by Yahuwah. Don't focus on that. Focus on those that are in their iniquity, and that you have the message that will enable them to roll back to Yahuwah. But if you've already rolled back to Yahuwah and then you roll away from him into folly, then you roll away. I don't have time for that, sorry. Because there's a whole bunch more that are coming in. And it's time to expand the tents, lengthen the cords, and get those curtains open. Because 1/3 has gone and 2/3 remain. Conversely of that, 1 woe has passed and 2 remain. And it's only going to get worse, and it's only going to get harder. So yes, I'm going to get more flinty. Yes, I'm going to get harder. And yes, I'm going to get more fired up. But that's it. Let's read verse 22. You can read the rest of the text. I've gone on way too long. And the hand of Yahuwah was there upon me, and he said unto me, arise and go forth into the plain. Or in my case, arise and go forth into the pain. Because, yeah, it has been painful. But you know what? It's good. Because when there is pain, there is birth, strength, and clarity. Right? So bring it on. Because then I will talk to thee there, even there he will talk to. Then I arose. Time to get up. Get up out of your self-pity. Get up out of feeling sorry for yourself. 1/3 has passed, and 2/3 remain. It's a powerful time to live. It is a powerful time to live. And that Yahuwah has called you, each and every one of you. It's because Yahuwah has rolled you out from the nations. He's exposed your weaknesses. He's exposed my weaknesses. But you're special. Because otherwise, you'd still be doing the things of the nations, and you're not. You're not excusing it anymore. You don't think it's okay. You're not lukewarm about it. You're not rolling this way and rolling that way. You're not a rolling stone. You've most probably burnt all of your vinyl from the rolling stones. If you haven't, burn it. Right? It's time to roll back to Yahuwah. And that doesn't mean you've got to get all Hebraic with your music, right? Just because you don't like the Rolling Stones anymore. But all that to say this. Yahuwah's vision became clear. My vision's become clear. I pray Yahuwah's vision and clarity come upon you so that your vision will be clear too. Because these are the days of Elijah. And excuse my oversharing, but I am what I am, and you are what you are. Praise Yahuwah. Abba, let your word go forth, Abba, as a mighty sword to the nations, to gather in, and Abba, to cut asunder those that are your adversaries are my adversaries. My adversaries are your adversaries. Yahuwah, let us gather around the feastal table, the saints and those that have the blood-tipped ear, the Abba, eat your word. Amen.